Hey everyone, this is Erin, and you are listening to Stop Talking About Fat Loss. I'm here again with Chris and Sarah,
What's up?
Hi.
and we are going to talk today about how to actually get the results that you want in the gym. We're going to cover progressive overload, how to build muscle. We're going to cover cardio and losing body fat. We're going to cover the phases of all things training and workouts so that you can pick and choose and figure out what you need to do to get the results in your body composition that you want to see. You guys want to start with kind of explaining the difference between progressive overload training and just kind of random training. I think that this is the main topic and a super important thing that I don't think I really understood until I started bodybuilding. I thought that I could just show up in the gym, do a class, and I was going to build lean muscle mass and start to look more like an athlete, which is what I wanted to look like. What are the difference between those two types of training programs? Or like, let's say you're doing some various videos with weight training, or you're hitting an Orange Theory class, or whatever the case may be, versus a strategic training plan written for you by a personal trainer or coach or whatever.
I mean, I can talk a little bit just about, the random workout bit. It's something that I see, pretty common, especially within the space that I work in. I am a part-time spin instructor, and a lot of people are coming up to me and they're like, I work out a lot, but I don't see a lot of body composition change. And I see them doing endless classes. Sometimes they'll come to every single class in a day. And I can understand how
Wait, how many?
frustrating
All of them?
every
Like,
single, all of them.
how many
You
is
guys, I'm
that?
not that can be up to 5 or 6 in a day. 45-minute high intensity interval training classes.
I would
What?
pass
Yes.
away.
I I honestly don't know how they still have knee tendons left, but
Yeah,
we'll talk about that
I would pass
later.
away.
I simply, yeah, it's not a lot. But I think that they have an idea of, similar to what I used to think was workouts is just calories burned. Doesn't matter what you're doing, doesn't matter in what capacity that you do it in, you want to burn more calories to lose weight. So you're going to get in there and you're going to burn them. And that's when you see people in the gym for 3-4 hours doing endless classes. But you guys, to be effective at changing your body composition, it's not just about burning calories. It's about building muscle and building strength within your body. So the difference is you can go to as many classes as you want, burn as many calories throughout the week, and you are likely going to get to the end of the week having not lost any weight at all, or possibly be so inflamed from all of that movement and lack of nutrients that your scale weight has actually gone up. So the difference between just going to as many classes as you want or finding a random Instagram workout every time you go to the gym and a program that's actually written for you, um, is that idea that Erin mentioned is progressive overload. So the only way that we can really gauge whether or not we are getting stronger with our lifts every week is if we're doing the same ones with similar weight to actually understand whether or not we're pushing our muscles to fatigue. And I would argue that that is the better marker for whether or not your workout was effective versus what number is on my cardio machine when I leave the class. And you guys, each cardio machine has a different formula that it has programmed to tell you what calories you lost or how many miles you walked. So it's not really an accurate marker for whether or not you're getting stronger. But if you can do 3 sets of 10 squats every single Monday for 12 Mondays in a row, you're going to have a really, really strong understanding of whether or not you've lifted the same weight or added weight to that lift or added reps to that lift. The mundane and the repetition is actually what you want from a workout program so that you can gauge your progress more effectively. Chris, would you find that training for specific sports was like a big driver for you as far as getting into the gym? Erin said that, she started to understand progressive overload when she finally started to get into the bodybuilding space. But did you kind of stumble upon that in a different capacity?
Yeah, a little bit of a different capacity for me. I was before I got really into powerlifting and bodybuilding. I was a long distance runner, so
Mm,
did cross country and long distance track. But the principle of progressive overload applies to endurance and strength training. So it doesn't.
absolutely.
It is a principle of the human body. So there's no getting around this. And when you're doing random workouts, you're not going to overload. So basically, what Sarah said was progressive overload is doing more volume over time to actually challenge your body and force your body to adapt to what challenges you place on it. So your body doesn't know whether it's a stone trying to crush you back when we were cavemen or if it's just dumbbells in the gym or a treadmill. So
Hmm.
basically for the weight room, it's doing overtime more sets, more reps, more weight. So week one, you do 8 sets of, or sorry, 3 sets of eight. 8 sets is too much. 3 sets of 8 with 20 pounds. And then next week you do 3 sets of 10 with 20 pounds. And then week three, maybe you bump up to 25 pounds, but now it's 3 sets of 8. And you kind of progress like that over time. Well, linear progression, which doesn't happen forever, but over time, you're going to keep adding reps, keep adding weight to a certain point. But a lot of people will jump around random workouts, like Sarah said, where, oh, quote unquote, muscle confusion. And week one is like barbell bench press. And then week two, it's like push ups. And then week three is single arm dumbbell bench press. You're like, you can't track progress. It's all different. It's very difficult. If you did all of them in one workout and you track them week to week to week, that's fine. But if you're doing like a full body on Monday, it's like random stuff, you can't track that progress. So it's very hard to overload your body. And with progressive overload, the reason you get results is there's something called super compensation the body does. And that's a big fancy term for basically your body makes itself stronger. So instead of like making it strong enough to just handle the 20 pounds you lifted, it'll overcompensate the adaptation to be able to lift like 22 and a half pounds. So that's how you get stronger over time. Or with cardio, you run 3 miles in 30 minutes. Well, next week you can run 3 miles in 28 minutes. It builds up that adaptation, whether it's strength, whether it's hypertrophy or endurance or explosive power. You have to challenge yourself week to week. And the only way to do it effectively is do something that's measurable. And that's not going to be random
Random.
workouts.
Yeah,
Never random
totally.
workouts.
I think what people don't understand, and is something that I like that you brought up, was it's kind of it's essentially it's a survival mechanism, right? Like same thing with how we manipulate our nutrition. If we are in a deficit, it's controlled starvation essentially.
Yep.
If we are lifting weights, like a prior version or a past version of humans needed to adapt to stressors over time, and that's what weightlifting is, to build muscle. The body's adapting to make you stronger because it assesses the risk. It thinks that you are under some sort of danger or you need to adapt to survive. And we don't think about that in like our current day and age, and we're lucky enough to not have to in most situations. We we want to manipulate our body composition, whereas our ancestors needed to get stronger in order to you know bring crops in from the field and or like build their own homes, and this is how they built muscles. And wasn't like they were going to the gym. And so I think that's something that people need to kind of recognize and understand. And it's totally okay if you want to do random workouts, but understand that yes, that might be beneficial for overall health and longevity. But it's not going to create the body composition change you want. So you have to decide which works best for you. And I think, Sarah does it really well. She has kind of a mixture of both. I prefer weightlifting myself. I don't really venture outside of that box, other than walking for the most part. But if you wanted to do something like quote unquote fun, you could do a strategic weightlifting program, because if you want to build muscle, look toned, whatever, and then add in a yoga class or a spin class or whatever once a week, to have that variety, to have that fun, that dopamine hit to the brain. But and at the same time, that's going to improve cardiovascular strength, all these things. But you have to do the progressive overload situation part of the program in order to get that body composition change, that muscle
Mhm.
muscle that you want to see. And that's what I didn't get. I was literally going to classes, there was weightlifting, so my brain told me that it was fine, but like every single week the lifts were different. It was sometimes barbell overhead press and then Arnold presses, and like in between that we'd run on the treadmill, and it was like I walked out of there feeling like I got my ass kicked, but then like months went by and my body wasn't changing at all.
Mhm.
Yep. And
It's
uh,
hard.
when it comes to like effective training, like if you look at the three of our programs, like when it comes to weight training, I bet they all look very similar. There's going to be some sort of like squat pattern every single week, some sort of
Mhm.
deadlift pattern, some sort of horizontal push like a bench press or a push up, and some sort of horizontal pull. Same thing with vertical. Like it's very basic movement patterns, and people want like, oh, why are we doing like week in and week out squats? Like that's how the human body moves. If that's a main compound lift, you want results, you're going to do a squat. It might be
Yeah.
some people, it might be a goblet squat with a kettlebell, some people it might be with a barbell, and others it might be a leg press, but it's all the same kind of movement pattern. It's every
Right.
single week for the rest of your life, you're basically going to do those movement patterns.
Yeah, mine are always very similar. I change up, the grip, or, on my lat pull downs, maybe a different like bar or whatever, but like they're very similar throughout the entire year. I think one of my bodybuilding programs I did for 9 months straight, and just kept beating myself over and over again. And I paid a coach to give me that, and he's like, nope, we want to see you progress further, and then we'll write you a new program. And I was okay with it. I think that something that we see a lot, and this happens with food and exercise, and this is the human brain, and especially in today's society, like wanting something different. How do you guys address people who say, well, I'm bored? How do we talk to people out like in that scenario? What happens with food too? But I think that's another thing that is so important. Is like you can also kind of quote unquote progressive overload nutrition, like eating the same things over and over again, and then like slowly shifting bad habits into better ones when it comes to nutrition. But it can feel monotonous and boring, and that's essentially like what leads to results. So how do you combat that?
I tend to tackle that just like I would with diet breaks. So, we have this concept I feel that we've talked about already, and I mean, stop me if I'm wrong, and I'll go into and I'll explain it a little bit more. But having a random pizza night in the middle of the week because you just feel like you need something different ends up shooting you in the foot a little bit more than a planned pizza night on Friday, right? And so like kind of that baked in variety, you already kind of touched on it a little bit, Erin, was I just try to say like have one workout in your week be something fun and different. It doesn't have to be all of them, not a different one every single time, but let one class or workout or whatever gym day be what you need or want in that moment. Sometimes maybe that'll be a yoga class. Sometimes maybe that will be a fun spin class, or you just go to the gym, walk on the treadmill, and do a little bit of flexibility and mobility. Because I think that challenge of doing the mundane, doing the repetitive stuff, that is the challenging part of being in a program, right? It's so easy to just kind of like bounce around through life and make decisions on a whim and do whatever workout you feel in the moment. But as we have seen, when we live our life like that, that's the reason why we're in our body composition that we are. So what we want to do is find a good routine and then plan for spice if and when it's appropriate. At least that's how I kind of personally handle it. What about you, Chris?
So I have like two different ways that, well, they can kind of like commingle. But one thing I like to do is have what I call indicator exercises. So these are going to be like your main lifts: squat,
Mhm.
bench, deadlift, row, or a pull up variation. Are we making progress on those? Yes or no, week to week. But then the rest of the exercises, they can change like every 3 to 6 weeks. So maybe it's incline dumbbell bench press for 3 weeks and then changes to a machine bench press or a
Mm.
push up or something like that. And same thing, maybe you're doing rear foot elevated split squats, and then that's going to change to a forward lunge. You can change those accessory lifts But we're going to keep one main lift, and that's going to tell us whether the rest of the program is helping us make progress or not. Because sometimes seeing body composition change is tricky to see week to week. We know the scale likes to fluctuate. We know sometimes we hold on to water and our progress photos don't look as lean as we'd like. And muscle building is like a snail crawling. The other thing is adding in some sort of like, I like Sarah's thing. The other thing is if you need more like a daily thing, is some sort of like skill building. So my best friend is really into like the unconventional fitness stuff, the steel maces, steel clubs, animal flow stuff. And he got me really into that. So you can throw that into like part of your warm up or the end of the workout routine as some sort of thing to for you to work on. And it's a lot of fun. And you might do 10, 15 minutes of that. And then the rest of the workout is just fine. So I used to have like 55-year-old women who hated the gym. Well, I put a steel mace in their hand and all of a sudden they feel like Xena the Warrior Princess for the first time in their life. They're swinging around this mace and they're like, but this is so much fun. This is why I come to the gym. They're like, I just get through the rest of my workout, make progress, because they know if they want to move up to the next weight of the mace, they need to progress with the rest of their workouts. And then they get to that. So that's another way is like find something that's fun and work on that skill, not the entire workout, but for a little bit. And then the rest of the workout, you just do a regular workout program.
Yeah, just kind of driven really towards that. It is so fun. I have a client right now who is really starting to put emphasis on gaining strength in the gym. And what actually got her there was joining a pole dancing class, which was so cool. And she was like, yeah, she goes, do you know how much upper body strength you need to do pole? And I'm like, I do, because I used to pole dance as well, in a recreational sense, everybody out there. But it's an insanely like amazing workout. But yeah, she was like, yeah, now I'm really driven to go into the gym and apply progressive overload because I want to be able to lift myself off the ground on a vertical pole. Having a sport or some sort of interest or even just your daily work habits, people who work with horses, it'll be, a really good idea to have your hip and shoulder strength. People who, work in construction or whichever, you need to be able to, get onto your knees and up off of your knees really effectively. And the way that we can make our bodies more efficient in our day to day is through muscle building. And the most effective way to do that is by performing the same lifts and applying progressive overload.
Yeah, I had a client who randomly got into rock climbing. Like she went to a place with her girlfriend one time, wasn't sure about it. All of a sudden it was like a light bulb went off. It was like, this is my thing. This is my thing. So now it's like she goes to the gym and she wants to train to get better at rock climbing so she can go out, like she's full in like, okay, what's the next level? How much harder can I make this? Okay, I need to improve this area of my upper body strength to move up.
Yeah.
I think that's so huge. And I think that's like largely personality based. You can find a sport or an activity that you love and use your workouts to like benefit or make yourself better at that. Like Chris does a lot of that with outdoor stuff. I love weightlifting. And so I am totally okay with just that. That's why I was drawn to the bodybuilding world because and I'm also competitive. So if I was in a class, this is why I can't do Orange Theory because I will try to compete and die versus the people next to me. But if I'm competing against myself, I think that's fun. So I go in, I look at my lifts, and if I did, like a sumo squat with a, 90-pound dumbbell, and I'm really excited that I could do 95 the next week, that's a huge deal to me. And so you have to kind of analyze yourself and your personality and what maybe you like rock climbing, maybe you like cycling, maybe whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to all be for the like outcome goal of your body composition, because if you actually like it, your body is also going to fall in line with that. If you go into the gym and you hate weightlifting and you don't have any reason other than that you want to look a certain way, you're going to be hard pressed to get results. But if you like rock climbing and you want to, or pole dancing or whatever, you want to have better upper body strength. And really with pole dancing, I'm pretty sure you probably need strong glutes and quad, like your legs are on the pole. Like there's all kinds of things that you need to be able to be that strong, to hold yourself up like that.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things to start to look into. And that's the fun part. And then the utilization of progressive overload is a benefit to your sport and the thing that you actually love doing.
Right. And I also think that a hidden benefit of, going in and pushing weights is anybody out there who is experiencing just general body pain, muscle pain, joint pain, the only way around that is to start building the muscle around those joints, start to fuel your body with the proper micronutrients and start to push, strength within those areas again. A lot of that is misuse or misalignment due to lack of strength somewhere in the body. So if you are someone out there who just wishes, I don't necessarily want to participate in sports, but I wish my posture was better. I wish that my hips didn't hurt every time. I wish that I was able to stand on my feet a lot longer. You could stand
Yeah.
to gain a lot of improvement just by focusing on minimal strength in the gym. And, I think there's a common misconception that it's like, people are going to go into the gym, start doing bicep curls and walk out looking like Popeye. There's zero way that's going to happen.
I wish it worked like that.
Gosh, I wish I would not be like slaving away in the gym for, several hours every week trying to build muscle. But it doesn't have to be massive like that. It doesn't have to be at that crazy bodybuilding capacity. Getting muscle growth like that is a topic that we can cover at another time. It's a very, very focused, specific thing, just like a fat loss phase is. But in general, just standard, weightlifting, a few times a week can help you with those aches and pains and start to mitigate some of those negative symptoms you're experiencing just in your day-to-day life without being, motivated by sports or hobbies.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so huge. My mom had a she's having some sciatica issues, and she's older. I'm 41, so that gives you an idea of how old my mom is. And I always feel kind of like a douche when I am like giving unsolicited advice as a personal trainer and as a wellness coach. So I kind of shy away from it. But she brought it up herself in a text conversation, and she's like, she's been a secretary or an administrative assistant her whole life. She sat in a desk at a computer, and she said, it's just from sitting all the time and not really paying attention to it until now. And these are the things that we really want people to also understand is even if you don't have body composition goals and you're really happy with how you look, making sure that you are utilizing some form of progressive overload and resistance training to lead a better life as you age is super important. And especially if you have a desk job, and many of us do, I do, where I'm programming all day. So I have to get up and walk, and I have to get up and go to the gym, and I have to prioritize that. Whereas before, when I was a restaurant manager, I was walking 20,000 steps a day without even trying. And so like understanding your current situation and what you need to do so that you don't have back issues or hip issues, like making sure your glutes are strong. If we have underdeveloped glutes, it can cause a lot of problems down the line. So it's not all about body composition. It's more about, it can be about body composition. I'm all for wanting to look better, but I'm also for like aging better and being able to pick up your grandkids and those kinds of things without worrying about your back hurting all the time.
I forget the actual stat, but there is a study was done, and it was mortality risk for older individuals, and you should be able to get up off the ground without using your hands. And people who can do that, their risk of premature death was really, really low because you had the strength, the coordination, and the muscle mass to be able to do that. If you can't do that, it's like, well, that's a problem. Like you're not strong enough, you're potentially not coordinated enough, so your nervous system isn't firing on all cylinders.
Yeah,
I
that's
forget
huge.
the actual how much it was significant. It wasn't like 10%. It was something like 80% or something.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's like a staggering amount.
It was a
yeah.
staggering amount. Like if you can't do this, and there's a few other tests that's like being able to balance on one foot with your eyes closed for 10 seconds is another one.
Mhm.
So like when we're talking here about training, and if you're listening, like, oh, I don't know if I'll be able to like squat 300 pounds. Like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about, can you get up and down off the ground? Can you balance on one foot? There's another thing done on people's hearts. I think this was a European study where if your heart rate didn't come down in older individuals after doing 2 flights of stairs, or it was, can you do 2 flights of stairs, I think, in a certain amount of time? And people who couldn't, it was basically as almost as reliable as doing a stress test on your heart. It's like, if you couldn't do this, you are at high risk of a heart attack. So again, not talking about strength, talking more endurance.
Yeah.
That's another test of like, okay, you should be able to go up and down stairs without getting winded. If you're getting winded, and we're not saying like you're going to like sprint up and down and be like, okay, I can breathe through my nose. But going up and down the stairs and not being exhausted, not looking at staircases like a lot of people do and be like, oh, I have to do stairs again.
Can't.
Yeah, I can't do stairs. Like,
Yeah.
if you're saying that, that's a concern.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have a client that has, that just has a little bit more, weight to lose, is somewhere, within, the true obesity range. And she told me that her biggest goal with weightlifting is, I want to take stairs.
Yeah.
I want to be able to walk on stairs. Like, that's what we're talking about with years of neglecting your joints, neglecting your muscles. Stairs become impossible. And that's what we want you to be able to live a life. It's not just about, having an Instagram worthy booty shelf or really cool like shoulder caps, which I love. I mean, those are, cool motivators too. But, strength training is going to help those things. If you feel helpless around a set of stairs, it's time to do some squats and add some weight and build that strength. There's a lot of strength to build in this area. It's not just about, changing your body composition or making yourself smaller. Building strength is a huge driver for so many different health markers within your body.
Yeah, I think exactly. With when people fall and like break their hip, it's actually the hip breaks first and then they fall. So it's not the fall that breaks it. It already broke. So strength training is one of the few things that you can increase especially for postmenopausal women, increase your bone density. It's one of the few things you can do. Cardio will only do it to a certain point. There's no getting around actual strength training for bone density. You have to do it. And you have to progressively overload. Just like your muscles, guess what? The bone joints the bones need to be progressively overload. They are only going to take, build up to the stress you put on that. So if you're only using the 5-pound dumbbells, well, yeah, maybe that's where you start. Maybe if you've neglected your body for 60 years, that's where you start. But in a few weeks, you need to bump up to the 10s.
Yeah. It's huge. I think when we think about results, people are automatically going to go to the physical, but what we're not thinking about is longevity. And that's, to me, I started my journey because I wanted to look better, but now it's like, as I approach, like more middle age, which I don't even like saying, but it's true. I know that there's women that are in my age demographic that are already struggling with mobility. They're already struggling with metabolic issues. They are getting type 2 diabetes. Like, muscle is going to help with insulin resistance, all kinds of stuff that we age in reverse almost when we were building muscle. It like the look is good, but also the longevity is better, and feeling better and being able to sleep throughout the night, because that's something that's a really fun thing that starts to happen in your late 30s and early 40s is sleep starts to get messed up. We're experiencing a lot of hormonal shifts and imbalances because we've been dieting for so long and not properly like exercising consistently. So it's a lot more about that part. And then on top of that, you also get to look badass at the same time. And that to me is the most important part of this whole thing, is like, we're going to make you capable and we're going to make you look like you want to look.
Right. And there was a big kind of driver for me, even after, getting into the weightlifting realm, where like I used the ability to add 2 pounds, 5 pounds, 10 pounds to my lift as the way to track my results because I was so frustrated with not knowing what the scale was going to do. I mean, at this point, I mean, I was just kind of dabbling in weightlifting. This is before I ended up hiring a coach. But since I got so frustrated with the scale, I actually took myself off of weighing myself. I threw away my scale. I wasn't allowed to do it because I could see myself going into like a really bad place mentally. So the only way that I was allowed to track my gym progress was, did my lift get stronger? And it switched something on in me where I was able to put value in how strong I was getting and take it away from how much fat could I take off of my body. And it was so cool. Like so many really cool things happened in here. Well, I mean, like the results were so because I wasn't paying attention to the nutrition bit yet. But like I found motivation to get into the gym to do the mundane workouts because I was so driven to pick up a 5-pound heavier dumbbell for my bicep curls. Through this time, I ended up getting a 315-pound hip thrust. Like that was a huge driver for me. I was like, how much weight can I push off of the ground with my hips? Because that just makes me feel really effing cool. And that arguably was the biggest switch in my head to take myself away from obsessing about how many calories I was burning, how much fat I had on my body. And so if you're somebody out there who is just like, yeah, cool, all of those benefits are all fine and good, but I'm really struggling just mentally with this idea, and like kind of getting away from the detachment of changing my body composition, just getting as strong as you possibly can is such a real, it's like, it was really, really motivating for me.
When you focus on habits like that, you end up in the background, kind of like snowballing your other habits. So, Sarah, probably you can probably attest to this. You were working on the gym, so you probably noticed like certain days, if you didn't eat right the day before that day, your gym performance went down, and then that probably frustrated the hell out of you. So you're like, oh, I'm going to make sure I eat better and fuel my body so my workouts are better. If I don't get enough sleep, I'm really tired and I struggle for my workout. So I'm going to make sure I get sleep in. I'm going to make sure I'm hydrated. You're kind of accidentally working on all the other things for the gym performance. And then when you're ready to go in the fat loss phase, you're like, oh, I'm going to have to do oh, wait, I already do all these things. Just dialing it in. Like, oh, it's just taking it instead of like from a 0 to a 9 on a scale, like you're already at an 8, you're just bumping up one level. Like, oh, I'm already basically at my macro goal. I just need to like actually track and weigh it now. And it's basically the same stuff I'm already doing.
It made those tweaks so much easier because I didn't want to drink the night before I was going to try to PR my hip thrust because there was no way that weight was going to come up and I was going to come out of that lift feeling like I didn't gain anything. And so therefore I didn't go out binge drinking the night before, which made like me be in a deficit probably for the week. It made implementing healthier habits so much easier down the line because I knew the way that the negative habits would affect my lift, would affect my efficacy in building strength.
And you're not at N equals 1. Like from hundreds of clients I worked with in person, the clients who did what you did almost always saw better results. Long term, 6 months to a year later, better results.
It's so true. The clients we have come in that are already kind of applying it and just need the specific tweaks to their lifestyle, their nutrition, their training, all of a sudden just like it's just like something goes off in them and they are they're not even a different person. They were already that person. It's just they needed a manipulation in the strategy and they already had the habits down. So it feels a lot easier than the fight that it was before to like continue to diet or, do another round of keto or like hit the 5th cycling class a day. I still am like thinking about that, like how that's even possible for humans to do. It's hard for me to do one of those like once a week. And I don't mean like getting there, I mean like doing it. So I can't even imagine doing 5
every single class.
So I think something important to bring up is the idea of spot trading. building muscle, we can, we can obviously do lifts for certain muscle, but a lot of people want to lose body fat. And one of the primary things that I hear in the space is, how do I lose fat off of, like, for women, hips, abs? I think it's probably this similar for men as well, like that midsection area, or like the like underarm area. And what people don't understand is we can't really spot reduce fat. Can you guys speak a little bit on that, and what to do if you were to want to, like, see better definition in your arms or have a more defined waistline? Because I think a lot of people, they'll be doing 8,000 crunches and not get anywhere. And we're probably just hurting our spine in the meantime. What can we say to help those people out?
Stop doing ab workouts every day.
Yeah. I never program abs, and I always get like new clients that are like, where are my ab workouts? And I'm like, oh, that's in your deadlift.
I was like, it's in your squats and your in your
Yeah,
compound
exactly.
lifts. That's what that means. Compound lifts means that we're working many groups of muscle at the same time, activating our entire body. But there is no way to spot reduce. If you want to take fat off of a certain area of your body, you have to reduce overall body fat content. And we've circled right back around to it. The most efficient way to do that is to build muscle and apply progressive overload. We've circled right back around. And also, you guys, I think people need to understand that this is also like genetics are a big factor in where and where the fat is collected on your body, and also how fast your body builds muscle. Muscle growth is slow in and of itself, and some bodies do it slower than others. So patience is definitely a factor as well. But we need to understand that it's, our bodies at, in some capacity, we can work on building, we can work on changing things, but there is no spot reduction. And at some point, like we, in general, when I start to gain a little bit of body fat, it goes straight into my lower abdomen area. Some people carry a little bit more fat, in their leg area. Some do it a little bit more in their upper body. That's all kind of genetics. But overall, no matter where it's collecting, that's just, a higher body fat percentage overall. And your body just likes to allocate it to different areas. And it's not necessarily that you need more ab workouts. It's just you want a general reduction in body fat, which means it would behoove you to focus on muscle growth
and nutrition.
Right.
Where you want to lose body fat the most is generally like the last place your body's going to really let go of.
Correct.
So,
sad.
it's your genetics
why
and your
it's there.
hormones. Yeah. So I had a woman years ago where she wanted leaner legs and leaner hips. She was a normal, healthy body fat level. Like we did in body, and I think she was at like 25%, like
Healthy,
not like
yeah.
crazy lean, but healthy. She had a 6-pack at that level, like legit 6-pack, but legs had most of the body fat because of estrogen dominance. That's gonna shove it right there. Other women, you're gonna store it in your belly a little bit more. It just depends on your genetics, and that's gonna be the last place. So it doesn't matter like how much you try to work out that area. Extra legs isn't going to make your legs leaner if that's where you're storing it, or extra crunches won't make your stomach go down. It's going to go down. It's just going to lose. And usually we lose from the extremities out. So you're going to notice like your shoulders and your face getting leaner, your calves getting leaner. And then it kind of like all comes to the midsection. And then it's like, that's the last place there's body fat. Guess what? There's no place else to lose from. So your body's going to lose from there eventually, but you have to get there.
Oh yeah.
Patience.
I think I think this is an important conversation, because we're not like shaming anybody or telling you, if you want to do ab exercises, by all means do ab exercises. But if you're driving yourself crazy doing a bunch of leg lifts or crunches or whatever, it's great to have a strong core, but that's essentially what the purpose of that would be, not necessarily to give you a 6-pack and that's super genetic. It's like, I am leaner in my abs, like in my stomach area, but I put on weight first in my hips. So like if I am at a lower body composition, I have like a wider, more like hourglass shape, but I kind of always have a like ab line or ab definition. And people are like, how do you do that? And like, I literally do not. It's just part of like my genetic code. I hold more fat also in my upper body. So I don't have as defined arms as I want to, but I have like glutes and quads. So that's just, I know that that is just a part of my genetics now. And I had tried for years to change that or like make it different by movement, and I never could. And so like it's freeing. And I think that's why I wanted to bring this up, just to like sort of understand where your genetics lie. And doesn't mean that you can't have a six pack if you, you know, if you want to. It just might suck to get there, or you can't like reduce your like hips. But like Chris said, it's probably, that's what always comes off last for me in a fat loss phase, is the like my hip width. Is my waist will come down, but my hips will like just be stubborn until I get to a lower body fat composition.
Right. And then I
It will come
also,
off. Just give
oh,
it
it
time.
will.
It does.
It's
Yeah.
just last. It will. It just happens last, which is fine. And then, I mean, I think it's also hard to navigate this because there are some unrealistic beauty standards out there in the world on Instagram, and all that stuff that make it seem like to have been successful in your fat loss phase or in your fitness, that you need to have a body just like everyone else out there, that, you know, you're only fit if you have a thigh gap. Guys, I don't have a thigh gap. I probably never will. I have the type of body that like the second I start to think about growing my quads explode. I will never have a thigh gap. It's not going to happen for me. Same with like hip dips. Everybody was like so obsessed with like, how do I make this hip dip go away? You don't. That's how your pelvis is on your body. Like that's where your hip bones are. And I mean, there are ways to help like minimize the look, which is actually growing your glute muscles. That's the way that you make hip dips lessen, is building muscle around the joint. But I will always have a level of hip dip, always, because that's just the way that my hips are in my body. That's the way that they're positioned. It's the way that I grew them. My body grew them that way. So, you know, to understand that these are not standards for beauty or weight loss. That's just your body, and the way that you get healthy can and will look vastly different. And I mean, throughout this process, I think that I was actually able to find out those things about me and gain that body autonomy. Like now, you know, like Erin, for sure, you're like, yep, there, I just will probably have to fight really hard to get that really like defined upper body definition, you know, similar with my lower body. And now like we know how to work with that rather than trying to making ourselves feel like there's something wrong with us or that we're doing something wrong. There are just some things on our body that are not like subject to change, and we got to be okay with some parts of that.
Yeah. The hip dip thing for me, it's a huge one because there's a bunch of Instagram workouts that are like, get rid of your hip dips. And you're like, okay, well, are we shaving off part of our like actual pelvic bone?
Like bone or what?
Like, that's not really how this works. Always have it, even when I'm super lean. When I was bodybuilding and I was like 115 to 118 pounds, I still had it. And it like, so I needed more glutes for sure. And that would have helped. And I have built more glutes in the years since I've competed, but like I'm pretty sure that no matter what, I would always have that. And those things are just giant liars. They like you're doing these Instagram workouts that are getting rid of your hip dips. It's just actually making you feel bad about yourself, as opposed to like empowering you to be like, hey, that you look good. You put on some glute muscles, like you have curves. That's cool. I mean, so cool. Like Sarah has a lower body fat percentage in her upper body, and I'm always jealous that she has more defined like upper body than I do. It's just, but that is just the way it is. It's like, no, we could do, and we have done exactly the same workouts for a long period of time, and we look two separate ways. And it doesn't mean that like what I have is bad or what she has is bad, or vice versa. It's just that is what we've been genetically given. And I think once we start to accept that, we are going to love ourselves a lot more and like start to work on what we can work on. And like if we're obsessing about hip dips and we can't get rid of them, then like we are not putting effort towards the things that we can focus on, like building the glutes or like building, like for me, I work really hard on my upper body because I know that I need more muscle to look like I have muscle in my upper body, just because my body fat like is higher in my arms and my like the upper body region. And so I prioritize that. And it like makes me feel a lot more at peace with who I am and what I'm doing, because I can just prioritize what I can work on as opposed to trying to get rid of something that I can't.
Absolutely. There's like a severe reduction in the comparison game because it's like, I don't have any control over what all y'all's bodies look like, but I know that I have control over what I can do for myself and feel confident in what I am doing. And I mean, the comparison game is the killer of progress, and it's impossible. It feels like we're running an uphill battle in this social media age because, you know, we have Instagram influencers bouncing around, posting their acai bowl and their silly step over a towel 80 times and get abs. Like that's not it's not
Well,
gonna work out. And so it's so much easier to kind of put myself within this box of this is what I can control, this is the strength and the health that I can build. And it's not me in, comparison to you, it's me against me, making myself healthier,
well,
making
so
myself
many
stronger.
pictures and even videos now online are doctored. Like you could just follow Goob and you can see how many people just
Yeah.
Photoshop all their pictures. And those are terrible ones, not good
Terrifying.
ones.
Yeah.
But even
Yeah.
oh, I'm blanking on the name. He's a big influencer. He's married to Sohi Fit.
Oh,
No, no. I think it
Marcus.
first name's Ben. Yeah, I know, I'm
I
blanking.
can't remember.
He's British.
I
Yes.
know I can like picture his face.
I know. But
Yeah,
he
I
Same.
can
I'm
posted
like,
a
picture
I
his
know who
thing
you're
face.
talking about.
for
Yeah.
like fitness magazines. He did a photo shoot back in the day and he was like for a cover and he's like, that's not me, because they like expanded his shoulders and expanded his chest. And this is like a professional doing it. So it didn't look like it was photoshopped at all. It was. He's like, but whoa, that's not me at all. Like I do not look like that. And he showed it. He's like, this was never published because I didn't let them. So I'm showing you guys what reality, and that's for men, which you
That's
don't think
wild.
about.
Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
glad that he said no, though. I'm really glad that he was like, I'm not going to set this standard for people comparing themselves to someone who literally doesn't exist, thinking that they can get there. And then when they don't, they think that something is wrong with them. And it's so sad to see.
Yeah, I'd love, like, before we wrap up, Chris, I'd like to talk about this in kind of the male perspective, because women are often wanting to be smaller, where men, like, it's the opposite. They want to be bigger. We don't have enough bulk. We can't put on mass. We can't gain weight. What does that look like, and how do we start to assess what you can do, especially if you are a male who has a hard time
So
putting
kind of
on
like
mass?
to put in perspective, because I know most of the audience is going to be female listening. A lot of the female beauty standards are set by other women, like the hip dip thing. Like as a guy, I don't give two shits about that. I'm like, what? Or a thigh gap? Like I don't,
No one,
I don't
You don't care about your hip
no one
dips?
cares.
My wife would complain. I'm like, I don't give a shit about that. So it's set by like other, what's
You're
this?
like, what?
So a lot of the same things apply. Like for men, it's like looking at other guys, and women are like, why would you want to look like that? Like that looks terrible, or that's too extreme. So for guys, it is again, an extreme, almost unattainable look. It's have a six pack, be ripped, but also put on muscle mass. And you don't realize how long that takes for most guys. So the temptation's there for steroids. A lot of people, and a lot, I learned from one of my coworkers, like in college, like you'll see these guys just growing. They're all taking steroids. They're also destroying their health by drinking at the same time. But a lot of people get
Oh no.
huge, and you're trying to like, how do I keep up? Like, what are they doing? Same thing what women do, just different capacity. And you realize that they're taking drugs, they're taking performance enhancers, and they're going to destroy their health. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to spend the money and take that risk? Yes, no, I'm not. No. But if you can actually find like people who are natural and they have realistic timelines, like, yeah, so it's going to take you about a decade, because that's what steroids do for muscle building, and what you can build in a year naturally will take you 10 years to do, like with everything going well. So you're going to have to put in the time, and you're also going to have to realize progress is going to be really slow, and your genetics may or may not be great for building muscle. So you, just like Sarah said earlier, like, learn what your body's going to look like. Just deal with your body. I have a terrible bicep peak. Like, if I do a double bicep, it is awful. My biceps always look really, really small. I hate it. But I've learned, like, that's genetic. I can't actually do anything about it. So I'm just always going to have that. But one of the easiest parts of my body to grow is my back. I can like look at a dumbbell, like, oh, I'm going to do a dumbbell row. Like, my back will grow. Yeah. So like fitting into shirts, like my lats, like not a problem.
It's awesome.
So you learn what's like a strength for your body, what's a weak area, and maybe you just hammer those weak areas a little bit harder, but then like celebrate your strong areas. Everyone's going to have one area of their body. Maybe it's your quads, maybe it's your chest, maybe it's your shoulders, whatever it is. Like, yeah, you're going to be kind of known for that in like your local gym. Like, oh, this guy has like sick calves. Like, great, celebrate that. Don't compare yourself. Like, oh, well, yeah, but I don't have, like, don't do that shit. Like, celebrate what you're good at, and work on your other areas.
Yeah. I think calves for dudes is like the same as hip dips for women. Like, women, I do not remember. I don't even know what Matt's calves look like. I don't know. Like, but dudes will like really be super sensitive about their calves, or like you said, their biceps. And again, like, it's not something that we pay attention to at all. I'm not going to date him because his calves are too small. Like, it's just funny, like, and I wanted to bring that up because I think it's important. And like you said, we're going to have a primarily female audience, but it's also important for women to understand that men are going through the same thing at the same time. And we all have insecurities that we're focused on and working on that like the rest of us really don't care or even notice is like off. Or like, I've seen Chris in person and I never once was like, man, his biceps are small. Like, you really need to work on that, dude.
I have never. Nope.
No clue. I was like, yeah, you look super fit. So that, like, that's the thing is like, other humans don't notice it. We are thinking about it. And if you want to focus on like a specific area of growth for you, totally cool. But like the rest of us probably just think that you look awesome. And we are probably looking at your leggings or your shoulder mass or whatever, and like wishing we had that too.
100%.
90% of the time I see you like doing something cool in the gym and I'm just trying to watch so that I can try and do it too. I'm like, oh, what is that working? Interesting. How cool. Like, and then they see me and I don't wear my glasses to the gym. So it's just me like squinting from across the gym. And they're like, what's wrong with that lady? I'm like, I just can't see you and I'm trying to see you.
Yeah, exactly. It's really more of a perception, but like, yes, you can build muscle in your less dominant areas. It just takes more time. And that's when you need to prioritize eating. If you're working on glutes and you don't have great glute growth, or you're working on biceps, like, make sure you're eating. That's not the time to be in a deficit. Like, eat during that time, and understand that when you are at maintenance or in a surplus, prioritize those muscle groups that you want to see bigger, because you're going to grow faster and like without enhancements. And if you want to use that, I have no problem with it if you're using it controlled and you have somebody that knows what they're doing and you're taking the correct phases. I never have, but I don't want to talk shit about anything like that. If you do you, but you can also do it naturally.
If you're doing the drugs, make sure you're supervised by someone who's a professional.
Please.
Correct.
Please.
Yeah. Get a legit coach, like dietitian, somebody that like knows what they're doing.
Yeah, and get legitimate supplements. We're not gonna try to bargain. And what's, I think, really the cool part of that was like just on mindset is it really teaches us to take our weaknesses and make them our strengths. I had no excuse but to, like when you start to go to the gym pretty frequently, I noticed I was like, wow, my upper body's kind of weak. I don't like feeling weak or vulnerable. And so like it became this weekly challenge to go, I'm gonna come out of this gym feeling strong. I was so tired of feeling helpless and weak. And the gym gave me like permission to change my own mindset and go, oh, if I am bad at these things, I can be good at them. I can build strength in them. And I think that was just as important as, you know, the actual physicality of getting stronger, but just knowing that like, just because I am quote unquote bad at these things right now, these new habits, this healthy way of eating, these new gym workouts, I I'm not going to be bad at them forever. I can apply progressive overload to my effort and come out of this with having strengths across the board rather than a roller coaster of strengths and weaknesses throughout my health and wellness.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good way to wrap this up, is just like being okay with not being perfect and being okay with understanding the like strengths and weaknesses that we all hold in our bodies and our minds, and like overriding those in the best way that we possibly can. Well, thank you guys so much. I love this conversation. I hope that
Oh,
everybody listening liked it as well. If you did, we would love it if you subscribed, write us a review, follow us on social media, all the things. We will be back to bring you more
See you
content next
guys.
week.
thanks, guys.